to Warriors for Christ, where we hope to encourage, inspire, and bring people closer to Jesus Christ.
Hello to Warriors for Christ, everybody. Today's session will be on kindness. I'll be running it. It's Adam. And we're just going to be talking about kindness in general. Most people in the world today, the Bible, it says, love thy neighbor, and just expect nothing of others in return. And I know that sounds a little hard to do, but we're going to try and explain it for you guys.
Now, we've all experienced kindness and things like that, and I think now is a perfect time to show kindness because of COVID. Everyone's inside today. It's really hard to get outside, do the things you want to do. Depression's on the rage. And just being kind to one another and just being a little bit of that light does bring a little bit of happiness into people's lives. So we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about our experiences. We're also going to talk about, Austin and Alan have two people that they picked from the Bible that have, in their eyes, showed lots of kindness.
We're going to start off by giving what kindness means to each one of us individually. I'll start us off. Kindness is something that people have in order to be loving and caring to one another. And, you can be kind and not be Christian, but it does help. Mm-hmm. Christians are usually a religion of kindness and just caring and brotherhood. And some people in life, they might just think of themselves as bad people. They might just think of themselves as bullies for the rest of their life, cynical. But, if you do feel like you are having a hard time, or if you're bad, or you give other people a hard time, it takes that realization to really take the steps to becoming a better person. And it takes a big man to admit their ways and their wrongs. Mm-hmm. And if you were wanting to take your first step to kindness, just own up to what you've done and said, and of course you're gonna mess up along the way, but as long as you stick to that path of kindness, even if you are a Christian, even if you're not, I think that you can still become a better person and everything. So I'm gonna hand it off to Austin and what he believes is kindness.
Well, my experience of kindness, I guess it has to be how I serve and put myself before others. I think it's really important that just putting everything before yourself and put others first. Like if someone may be struggling with something, and just help them out and with whatever they're going through. Even like at church, I help out with the production team, if you heard me say that before. Sometimes I think of others before I think of myself, even if I don't agree with it or think it's necessary. Because sometimes you might hate doing stuff like that, what you're putting before yourself. Even sometimes if you hear the saying, putting the truth, you don't tell someone necessarily the truth because it's can hurt them. Sometimes they just say it's better to keep it just hidden, or keep as a secret, I guess.
But what do you believe? Do you believe that, say for instance, there is something that could hurt a friend, right? Mm-hmm. There's something big, and telling them would, say for instance, hurt the truth, or hurt them, tell the truth.
Yeah.
But if you lie, it would protect them, or protect their feelings.
Oh yeah, noble.
Well, yeah. So what would be
I agree with both, because sometimes it's just a good friend to tell them the truth, and it would hurt, but eventually they'll get over it, and it can help them grow stronger. Mm-hmm. But even if you do hold it back and lie, I guess, because if they did find out, they might be mad at you or think of you as a bad friend or something.
I think for me as a person, I think it really depends on the situation. If you feel like you're being kind by saying that person needs to do this or that, and they don't like that, I think that the fact that you find that yourself trying to get better and being kind to that person, I think it really matters to you. If you felt like you've chose the right decision, then I think that's worth it. But again, it does matter case by case. Also, sorry for not saying this before, but we do have Alan, our manager. He's yeah, sorry, God, man. I wanted to call him producer.
Well, he kind of is that too.
He is the producer.
He is. But our manager, he's feeling a little under the weather today, so he's in a Skype call with us. So we do apologize if there's any audio issues with him. But I think we're going to pass it on to Alan and what he thinks of kindness.
All right, Adam. Well, actually, I'm not really under the weather. I was just being a concerned citizen.
Oh.
So
Oh, my bad. That's my bad.
You don't have to say that.
I thought it was.
Alright, well.
Mm.
Okay, well, first I'm going to start off with saying that I kind of do take a different approach to both Adam and Austin here.
Mm-hmm.
Because, Adam, while you were correct in saying that Christianity is a religion of kindness and brotherhood, those things, I believe, do come secondary to the truth. It is a religion of truth, first and foremost. However,
Okay.
this is where the kindness comes in. I believe kindness is basically the correct way of, I guess, sharing the information, sharing the truth with other people.
Yeah, like I said, I agree with both sides.
You know, I think now that you're saying it, I do. You did say that kindness is a big factor, but I do also believe that truth.
Well, it's
is
the right kind of kindness. Though.
Yeah, I do
That's what you
believe.
have to keep in mind.
I do agree with you saying truth is probably number one thing in Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Brandon, would you like to share your opinion?
Of course, I always like sharing my opinion. So, my opinion on kindness is really, I guess, like a basic form of just being nice to each other, you know?
Yeah.
Again, like, love thy neighbor. Also, kindness is, for me, helping people out, making people smile, just doing things that help each other, including, again, like I said, with COVID. I reference COVID because it is the most prominent example right now with healthcare, people donating masks, people wearing masks around the stores, just things like that that really help people out. And that's really my version of kindness. Just really just helping people out and being, well, nice about it.
Well, I know I've like heard statistics where it's like teenagers our age are in depression usually, or because of COVID now, because I guess they can't hang out with their friends or do things that they like to do because everything's shut down.
Yeah,
And I think now is the perfect time to reach out to them, say, hey, how are you doing? Or
Yeah, because we're just naturally social,
Mhm.
and right now we're social distancing.
yeah, true.
Yeah, like I can relate because I'm like a really social person, right? Like I like talking a lot.
Mhm.
So this whole COVID thing when it first came, it was awful for me.
Yeah,
so
me too.
I know how people feel when they say, "Hey, I got really depressed." And for me, my friend helped me get out of that depressed state. You know, just talking to me, saying, "Hey, checking up on me." And I started doing that for other people once I started,
Mm-hmm.
you know, making myself feel better. So again, I feel that's how I really see kindness in my eyes.
Doing things for others, helping out.
Mm-hmm. Being selfless in a way.
Even like I said, even if you don't like want to do it, your opinion really helps others.
There's a difference between most people don't know this, but compassion is a little bit different than kindness. Compassion goes with giving something and getting something. You know,
It's like empathy.
yeah,
Empathy plus
you
kindness.
Yeah, pretty much. You basically are kind to the person, and them being happy makes you happy.
Yes, it's true.
And Austin said even if you feel like you don't want to do it, it's still nice to do it. I think that there's some truth in some people. You know, they might have a different opinion. They might have something. But even if your neighbor, if your brother, mother, anything has a different opinion on you on a subject, that doesn't mean we should shut them out or
That's true.
close them off. Because how are we supposed to grow as a person, or how is we supposed to grow as a society if we don't talk to one another?
But that's what
Okay,
even
well, I
me and
feel
my-
like the Amish would have a very different view than you, Adam.
Even my brother and I guess sometimes we don't get along too well, but sometimes just having like that heart-to-heart moment just really helps. Like where we talk about what we're struggling with and how we can help each other out. And that's like a true act of kindness, I think, is...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, admitting when you're wrong and
Yeah.
just, I guess the big thing I can say with that is like video games. Let me tell you something. So I promise you this relates to the topic. So there's this game I like to play called Destiny 2, right?
Yes.
And there's these things called raids. Now, raids are a 6-person activity where you guys all have to come together, work together.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I tell you...
Teamwork.
Yeah, it's like teamwork. Now, when I tell you that nobody likes to own up to, like, when they do something wrong or they mess up and they know they messed up, they don't like to speak, it's not the best thing. So I honestly do that too sometimes. So I know how it feels. When it's like hard to admit that you're wrong for something.
But you know what? The fact of the matter is that you know that you're wrong, and I'm sure that you like, what's the word, like reconcile.
Yeah.
Well, that you for that you might say like I'm sorry, or like you own up to that. You don't just push it away, and I think that's really how you grow your caring for one another, and how you just you grow yourself in order to make yourself better for others.
Like your own brand. That's why I think.
Definitely.
Because like when you meet somebody, right? You think you're asking them, talking to them. First thing that you think of is how kind are they? Are they like a nice person? Why are they talking to me, whatever? So again, that's how I feel.
Yeah, no,
and I'm like friendly like you are. I like to talk to new people and.
Oh yeah, I like talking to new. I love talking. I love talking to new people. Even just having like one conversation with somebody who might be having a bad day.
Yeah, that can really help them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or just sitting with them at lunch or something at school.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's I think. I mean that's a classic example in schools.
Yeah.
Like the video you go into middle school and watch, and it's the girl sitting alone in a lunch table, and then like they go up and sit next to her. That's such a classic example.
Well, I remember because I was the section leader last season of marching band, and there was this one new girl we had. She just transferred from I think Lincoln Charter, and I mean, even though my band director really didn't say this, but I just knew to do it. Like I was going to hang out with her until she met new friends, and got like just how we do things as a band, and got around our school and stuff. Like I was showing her around, just helping her and talking to her like any other human being would do.
Yeah, she's another human being. Don't treat people like they're not. People are still they're still people.
Yeah.
Even if they're new, even if they're different, they're still a person.
Yeah.
Because I know even I was like new, I guess, coming to elementary school, and I moved here in second grade, and I know that was tough for me. But I ended up meeting you and Payson in third grade, I would say.
Yeah.
Even like a personal example with me and you, when I started working at the YMCA, I didn't really have many friends, but just talking to people. You helped me show the ropes and everything. Show me who's who, what's what to do. So that's another example.
And that can also be good leadership.
Yeah.
Call back to our last podcast last week. Was about leadership. If you want to check that out,
if you haven't already.
You guys want to go to verse of the day?
Well, I'm gonna jump in real quick. This song we played in the intro is called "Adventure" by Matthew Parker. It talks about like doing adventures and like dreams coming true. I think that's important because I guess it's like them just hanging out and doing things together, and I think that's also important with kindness is building those relationships, doing things together.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Alan, we're getting ready to do verse of the day. You ready?
Yes, I am. All right, and it is time for verse of the day. Today's verse comes from the book of Ephesians in the New Testament, and it is chapter 4, verse 32. And be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, hath forgiven you. And by the way, this comes from the King James Version. Now, this verse, of course, very explicitly ties in with our topic that we are discussing today called leadership. Kindness. You got me confused, Adam, with the last podcast.
Sorry.
And, be ye kind one to another. This basically described how I said how we should communicate the word, the truth of the gospel to other people. Be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted. This ties into the empathy that we were discussing earlier. Forgiving one another. Brandon talked about this in a couple of podcasts back. Forgiving. Even as God, for Christ's sake, hath forgiven you. Now that basically talks about imitating Christ. Adam talked about that earlier in a previous podcast as well, about how we can do greater things than I. That's basically how this ties into kindness.
So, yeah, we're gonna give our two guys here, Austin and Alan, let them give their examples. Austin, you want to go first?
Certainly. So I did pick the story of Joseph in the Old Testament, and he pretty much lived in Israel, and I guess what they pronounce it, Canaan or Canaan. And Joseph, he was the son of Jacob.
It's Canaan.
Canaan?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's a weird word, I guess. Okay, so Joseph, he was the son of Jacob, and he was the favorite son, I guess. And Joseph's brothers, they were like really jealous of him because they knew that he was the favorite son. And I even know that Jacob even gave Joseph like a robe, and that really made them upset. But one day, Joseph, he had a dream, and pretty much it's like he said like that he like thought of himself as a king or something, like ruling over his brothers. And here's a verse to back that up. We are binding sheaves of grain out in the field. Suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. Kind of saying like how if you were a king, you would bow down, like your, I guess, peasants would bow down to you. And this really made them mad, and it made them so mad that they wanted to kill him. But Reuben, he was another brother. I think they had 12 brothers in that, or siblings in that family. But Reuben, he overheard this. He's like, why kill Joseph? Instead, they threw him into like a well, but it just had like no water in it. But eventually,
So it's a dry well.
Yeah. They let him sit there for a while, and then eventually they said, why don't we just sell him into slavery so we don't have to deal with like his death on our hands? So that's what they did. And they even tricked the father by, they dipped Joseph's, like, a robe. And they like killed a goat and dipped it all in its blood to make it look like he was dead. And Jacob was very mad about that. So, going back to Joseph's side, he was now in Egypt, but he was like put in charge of cleaning the Pharaoh's house. But the Pharaoh's wife, I guess she had like a thing for him and thought he was cute, and she wanted him to lie in bed with her, but he refused multiple times. And then one day he left his garment in her hand and ran away because he was just tired of the Pharaoh's wife wanting to sleep with him. And then one day, when he fled, the Pharaoh's wife, she made up a story like how Joseph like raped her, and like she was screaming, and he ran away and left his garment. And then Joseph was thrown into prison, like with the other slaves. But they all loved Joseph because Joseph, like they would the other prisoners would tell Joseph like their dreams, and he would interpret them. That was like God going through Joseph, telling him like what would happen. And eventually the Pharaoh found out what was happening, and he had a dream he couldn't understand. So they called him out, or Joseph out, and he interpreted the dream. And he was so pleased that he was able to interpret the dream that he didn't understand, that he like put him like as like a deputy or a vice president, you can call it, in his dream. Or we'd have to talk about his dream later. It's kind of long, but you guys can check that out later. But going back to Jacob, or Joseph. So Joseph, he sent, because his brothers were coming there to get food, because they heard that they had like a very good supply of food. And Joseph, he sent his brothers to get back his father and the rest of the family and bring them to Egypt to come live with him. And Jacob, he was like so happy that he was able to see Joseph one more time, because he knew he was on the stage of dying. And I think I'm just going to end the story here, because it's kind of long. It's in the story of, or a book of Genesis, chapters 37 through 50. I think it was just, Joseph showed so much kindness, because like even his brothers were being so mean to him, wanting to kill him, selling him to slavery, and even throwing him down in the well. And he like a couple of years later, he forgave them and wanted them to come live with him, because he was like the deputy of the Pharaoh, as you would call it. I think that was just very important what he did for his brothers and his family, even though how mean they were to him.
Yeah,
I could not. I'm gonna be honest with you. I could not do that.
Well, that's also goes back to forgiveness. What we talked about.
Turn the other cheek. The whole thing. I really like that story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just like even just try to put yourself. Think about trying to put yourself in their shoes. You know, could you do that? I mean, it takes like a strong will to kind of do that kind of stuff.
I think there's even a movie, but we could talk about this later.
Yeah.
About forgiveness. I forget what all happens, but I think like the wife, there's this like family and the wife gets murdered or something, and then the husband, he was so mad about it, and then eventually he found like about the Bible and God, and he forgave the murderer, whoever it was, and that really like changed his life around.
I think I think that'd be a good topic for another podcast.
I think so too.
Yeah, we should definitely tell that story more. Alan, would you like to tell your story now?
Yes, but before I begin, I will fill you in on some biblical context about Austin's story, Joseph.
Okay.
So after all what Austin said happened, basically God came to Jacob in a vision, God the Father, and renamed him Israel, similar to how Saul was renamed to Paul. And Jacob had 12 sons. 10 of them were with his first wife, Leah.
Yeah, I remembered it was 12 sons, but I thought it was like, I didn't know if he had any wife or daughters or anything.
Yeah, and his second wife, Rachel, had Joseph and Benjamin. And all of those sons formed the 12 tribes of Israel, the historic 12 tribes.
Wow.
Joseph formed the tribe of Judah. So, okay, well, that's enough.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that's
I didn't know that because I didn't read past that because I was going to stop the story there, but that's interesting.
That is kind of interesting. Give your story, Alan.
Okay, so the person who I picked that exemplifies kindness, in my view, the most, would have to be Esther. And basically her story is just in the entire book of Esther. Now, there is a lot of controversy surrounding Esther as a biblical character because the book of Esther does not mention God in any of his three forms anywhere in the entire book. And there is some historical things that are renaming and stuff like that makes it seem weird. So most Protestants do not consider this part of the actual Bible. They consider it an apocryphal story. But anyways, I'll just give you some of the history of Esther first. So in the beginning, King Ahasuerus, which if you don't know his name, you may know him by his more Greek name, which is Xerxes the First. Okay, so that's why I'm going to refer to him, because Ahasuerus is a very long name. Okay, so Xerxes the First is drunk in the beginning of the book of Esther. He's in his third year of reign. He's sitting here, acting drunk. And he orders his queen at the time, which is Vashti or Vashti, however you want to say, to appear before him and his guests naked, to show how beautiful she actually is. And she was like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's pretty disgusting. So what he did, he's like, oh, okay, bye. He banished her and seeked out a new queen. Now, how they did that was he had some of his, I guess you could say secretaries at the time. That's basically what they were. Some of his other harems, I guess, gathered 10 virgins together to be shown to him, and he would pick which one to be his, just one of them to be his new queen. Now this is where Esther comes in. She is the cousin of Mordecai and was a member of the Jewish community during that period. And she claimed her ancestor as Kish, who was a Benjamite, which is, a very close-knit Jewish. Benjamites came from the tribe of Benjamin.
Yeah.
Okay. And she was the orphan daughter of Mordecai's uncle, who was named Abihail. So that's just her beginning. Okay. Now back to the part where she's a virgin being lined up in front of the king. So her turn comes to be taken into the palace, where Haggai prepares her to meet the king, individually. And this is where her kindness comes in. She is so kind to him, acts like the Proverbs 31 example of a woman. She is beautiful and she acts kind to him, so she becomes the highest harem on there, the most powerful harem.
Mm.
And the reason, Mordecai, in between her visits to the king, gives her instructions to conceal her Jewish origins because the king was pagan. He was a Gentile. Okay, and because of her kindness, he falls in love with her and makes her his queen. Now, I believe they killed all the other virgins. Cersei's dead. Okay, so she gets coronated as the new queen, and Mordecai learns of an assassination plot by two people, two eunuchs, who guarded the king. And eunuchs are men without balls. Okay, those two eunuchs were named Bigthan and Teresh. They plotted to kill the king. So Mordecai notifies Esther, who is now queen, and tells the king in the name of Mordecai. She goes to the king and tells him, Mordecai told me this, reveals the plot, and the king is saved. He kills the two eunuchs. And so the king values this so much that he records it in the annals of the kingdom, which is like the history, which is like the records, government records. Okay, so now the big bad villain of the book comes in, called Haman. He's an Agagite. He is made Xerxes' highest advisor and orders everyone to bow down to him. Bow down to me. Mordecai stations himself in the street, refuses to bow to him at this time. And Haman uses this because Haman actually has an intense hatred for the Jewish people. He tells King Xerxes this, and he pays him 10,000 silver talents, which is like currency at the time, for the right to exterminate all of the Jews in Xerxes' kingdom. And then he casts lots, which is known as Purim, using supernatural means. And he sets the date of extermination at the 13th day of the month of Adar, which is in the Jewish calendar.
What would that be? Would you know, like what month?
Okay, it would roughly be the month of March.
Oh, okay.
In the Gregorian calendar, which is what we use today.
Yeah.
All right, I gotcha.
Okay. So he sends orders to all the other provinces that King Xerxes controls to allow the extermination of the Jews on that day. Mordecai learns of this. He did not learn of it before. And then he reveals it to Esther once again. And this time he tells Esther to reveal that she is Jewish and asks that he repeal the order. Esther hesitates again because during that time, if they found out you were Jewish, that's like a, execution time right there. So, and also, she could be executed as well if she goes into the king without first being summoned, because remember, this is the king is still higher than the queen. They weren't exactly equal during that time. But Mordecai urges her to try. Okay, and then Esther basically tells the entire Jewish community fast and pray for 3 days to give her favor. Okay, and then so she goes after the 3 days. She gains favor with the king. He summons her into his court, and then through her kindness, she sets up a banquet for Haman, where Haman, the king, and her are there. Okay. And the king is unable to sleep during the night before the first banquet. So he asks that the annals, again, there's the annals again, to be read to him. And then he gets read the page where Mordecai is mentioned of his great service, which I mentioned to you before.
Yeah.
And the king's like, oh, what did he get for doing this? Did he get any reward? And his attendants say no. So, king's like, all right, set up an award for him. And then Haman's there, sitting there in the middle of the courtyard. I don't know what he's doing. He's just like standing there.
Yeah.
And then the king's like, yo, Haman, what you doing? Come over here. And he says, Haman, I want you to take Mordecai, put him on royal robes, and go through the streets, parade him through the streets. And again, Haman hates Mordecai because he's Jewish.
Yeah.
And then Haman, the king orders Haman to say to the people, this is what shall be done to the man whom the king wishes to honor. So he's sitting here hating what he's doing. He has to go parade. And then Esther, again through her kindness, organizes a second banquet for Haman. Okay. And Xerxes is there already waiting. And because of what she has told the king says, you can have half of my kingdom. You can share in the power. But she denies the offer. And then she says, I have a more basic issue for you. And she reveals to him that Haman, or she just says in general before this, a person is trying to kill her and her entire people, the Jews. And that this person's intentions are to harm the king and the kingdom. And during the banquet, Xerxes says, who is this person? Esther says, Haman, and she points to him. And then the king's mad at him, and he says, or he doesn't say anything, he just goes to the garden to calm down. He's like,
The noises really help.
and then while the king's in the garden, Haman sits there, throws himself down to Esther. And then he's sitting there, please, Esther, have mercy on me. And the king gets even more mad. And then when he turns around and sees Haman at her feet, he thinks that he is trying to grope her.
Oh.
And the king says, get removed from my sight, Haman. And he gets let out. And tells a civil servant of the king, known as Harvona, informs the king that Haman had built gallows, which, if you don't know what gallows are, it's what you used to hang people on earlier.
Yes.
He built them for Mordecai. That's what she told the king. And the king said, why would he do that? He has saved my life. And the king says, put Haman on the gallows. Hang him. Haman is hanged. And then Xerxes gives Haman's estate to Esther.
Wow.
And Esther then gives it to Mordecai because he is her advisor.
Oh.
Esther then gets the king to revoke the order exterminating the Jews. And Esther also got him to execute another order to allow the Jewish people to defend themselves and fight with their oppressors. And on the 13th day of Adar, Mordecai was not killed. Haman was. He was hung. So that just shows you.
So it's kind of like saying, so would you like say this is an example of Esther's and Mordecai's kindness in this story?
Well, yeah, basically Esther and Mordecai are kind of combined as the main characters.
I see.
So it's just to show how kindness kind of works out in the end.
Yeah.
Was to show how Esther, not being a feminist, because remember, she's a woman. She was not a feminist, not in a liberal, independent woman point of view.
Like
Submitted to the king,
Yeah, we get
but
that,
still persuaded him. Still persuaded him through her kindness to save her people. And that's pretty impressive right there.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Wow.
So that's my story of Esther. That's how
thank
she
you, Alan.
exemplifies kindness.
Yeah, thanks, Alan, for the story. So, before we sign off today, I just wanted to say that we're now answering. I've heard a lot of people asking me, what about questions? We have a few questions for you guys. Well, if you text us on our Instagram or you message us from our email. We'll now start answering questions here soon. So just whenever you guys get the chance, start emailing us or text us some questions, and it might be featured here.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Our text is the same as the email. It's like the Apple account. So if you have an iPhone or Apple device, you can text us through there at warriorsforchristpdc@gmail.com.
Next week, Austin's going to be leading us.
Yes, I'm going to be leading worship. We're going to talk more about what that means.
It's going to be really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you everyone for listening. I'm going to be kind to myself and get myself something to eat because I'm a little peckish. But thank you everybody for listening and tuning in.
Yeah, thank you guys for just letting me lead this stream today.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. It's really been a pleasure, and I hope you have a good time at college. What is it, next week?
Yeah, it is. I am going to college next week, so probably next week, if they'll have me, I'll probably be on the Skype call, not just Alan.
I don't know if we'll have you.
We'll see.
I was messing with you. All right. Anyways, thank you everybody.
Okay, well, before you guys actually say anything else, I also would like to mention that I would love to answer your questions as well.
Yes, Alan will be taking care of your questions, and we'll be talking about some of them on the show. But I think, Alan, you will be answering most of them, correct?
Yes, because as you mentioned before, I do have the most biblical knowledge on this show.
Yes, you do.
I agree with that. But I encourage you guys to maybe do an act of kindness this week and maybe just let us know like what you're going through, how kind you can be to somebody, just whatever it could be.
Yeah.
And definitely, since Alan is going to be answering your questions, if you have any specific questions for a specific person, please let us know.
Oh yeah, we'll be happy to answer them at any point in time.
Even if Adam's not here, we'll reach out to him for you.
But I definitely think Alan will be able to suffice an answer for you.
Yes.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
But thank you guys, and have a nice day.